All right. Okay. So, I'm going to do on the engineering or technical topics. We have the SAE heavy lift competition coming up.
Nice.
So I can research methods about going about that.
Cool.
Research on the rules and what we need to do for that.
Cool.
So do I need to make it a paper?
Nope. It can be
Just
just
any kind
what
of
your
research
was that requires you to do library research.
Okay.
Right? Or some kind of information seeking research. So just start there and just kind of talk.
The first place I look for information on this is actually going to be YouTube, because on the heavy lift competition, there are other. This has been going on for a little while, and it's good to get an idea of what frames look like and things like that for the other competitors, and things from the past. You know, when in engineering you want to look up things that may have succeeded or failed in the past and learn from that. So I'm not going to watch a video because that would take up time. But I would first look there, and then even look up the SAE heavy lift rules, which is going to be on the website for it. 2015. Okay. Let's see. Rules and documents. So here's all the rules. I can pull this up. Okay, so let me look at this. Authority, penalties. Okay, general aircraft requirements is mainly what I'm looking at. So I'm going to go down to page 11. Okay. So I'm going to open up a document on pages. So I can have, once I find what is required for this, I can kind of put it in there. I did say page 11. Oh. Alright, general aircraft requirements. Take all this. Okay, that's a lot of stuff. So
you would just save that in Pages so you would have it later?
Yeah, I could do that. Save in Pages.
Yeah.
That way I can, or even just save a copy of it to my desktop so that I can review it whenever I need to.
Yeah.
After I review all the rules and I'd be able to look at all that, I can open up a tab and even go and research what I'm going to be using for the heavy lift competition, possibly motors or things. Usually when you're building aircraft, you want to start with the motors, find out how much thrust you can generate with what kind of motor. On that, I tend to go to Hobby King, just because it's a nice little friendly RC, and it has a lot of parts and things. It's a relevant website for what I'd be needing. This on it has all the different. Let me just look at something. If I needed motors, if I find a certain type of motor, usually the motors themselves on here will have. Well, this one doesn't have it, but let's try this one. It has all the prop data. So the 5.3 will tell me for a 5-inch prop with a 3-inch pitch, it'll give me this much. It'll generate. It'll use this much voltage for a 3-cell battery. It'll use at 50%. It can generate this much thrust for 3.7 amps. This will tell me basically my parameters. I'll just say if I were to build a quadcopter with this or do something with this,
Right.
it would tell me exactly what I need. For the SAE, it'd be a little bit different because we're using propellers on the back of it. So I would need propellers on the back to generate thrust forward.
So even though this is a .com site, this is more helpful to you in your research
Yes.
instead of going to any type of like professional or like a trade site for engineering.
Yes, for this, because it has, these are experience values.
Okay.
These are people who have tested these and who have come up with these values. This site is tested, it has been used, and that's why I find this to be credible.
Okay.
Other than that, you can go to places where you could. There are other places you could go to that would have on their thrust data. You can, if you took this motor, other places I could go and look up a prop sheet or a data sheet. So this isn't wanting to have a data sheet. And also on YouTube, you can see how they perform. Generally, for some motors, they'll have data sheets and things like that. But other than that, if you wanted to kind of get them, you could get one of them. You could test them out. There are ways to test thrust, and there are ways to test how much amp draw they have. If you wanted to, you could even simulate it. You could use SolidWorks, create the motor in SolidWorks, and generate thrust based on air condition and things like that.
So how would you keep up with all these sources?
How would I keep up with them? Would be mainly I use my history.
Mm-hmm.
I can look in my history to find all of these, where I've been and what I've seen. Other than that, generally I'll take, this is already saved in my desktop, this other motor. If I see a motor that I like and kind of want to keep around, I can go into Pages, just drop a URL in Pages, and maybe add a little footnote of why I would need it, and then keep going with my research.
Cool.
Things to come back and look at, compare prices, I'll probably even, since I'm looking at motors, I could look at, okay, how much voltage it has. I could throw in voltage, weight.
So you would use Pages to save that, specifically that program.
I typically use Pages a lot for my research. I usually, if I'm keeping up with what I want to, what I've been searching, I use Pages a lot, or even our team, the aerial robotics team. We have actually a Google Drive set up so that things we've researched and found. We throw it in there, get everybody's opinion on it. We use like peer review. Okay, how does this sound for everyone? We'll collaborate on those. We'll even talk back and forth. We have a group me set up where we can talk to each other. We use a lot of in engineering, I guess. We bounce ideas off of each other a lot when we're doing research. If I was just doing a paper, I tend not to do as much. If I bounce it off anybody, I use my brother, he's a English professor, so
Nice.
I tend to use him a lot for things. In fact, I just sent him a resume yesterday. I sent him a resume just to look at and review for me, and he gave me a lot of feedback on that. So I guess I use different methods. I do use a lot of website research. If I was researching for a paper, I would go to the library just because it'll generate a lot of more scholarly articles as opposed to the kind of junk I would find on the general internet. If sometimes if I'm starting research on something, I will use Wikipedia just to start and get an idea of what I'm researching. If it's something I haven't seen before, or if it's like an interpretation of a poem, or if it's some other form of if it's a paper about something I don't really know much about. Like last semester, I had Pete, and he had us do free university, and in that class, I learned a lot. I used the school database and everything to search about what goes into or ideas for a free university, or what could go into it. I used demographics from other countries, other countries where this had worked or had not worked, why it failed, if it failed, why it succeeded, and used all those different kind of articles.
Cool.
But definitely my predominant go-to is internet research, I would say.
Awesome. Thank y'all.
That was great. I appreciate that.